Hello world, Krista here with Books and Jams, and it's time for another Friday 5. Yay! In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 5 books that are just released or going to be released within the next couple months. I don't typically pay attention to new releases, and therefore I'm not usually up to date on what's coming out other than watching other booktubers channels, but I thought it would be fun if I would take a look at the next few months and tell you some of the books that stand out to me as ones that are definitely going on my TBR. I buy most or all of my books secondhand, so these are not books I'm running right out to the bookstore to buy. I am not pre-ordering these, but I might get them from the library or make sure at least that my library is going to be ordering them so that I can find them there. So let me just jump right in and tell you what they are. The first book did come out on January 30th, and it has a gorgeous cover, and it's called The Hazelwood, written by Melissa Albert. This is a debut novel. It's described as a dark fairy tale, and this story, from what I can gather, is about this 17-year-old girl named Alice, who all of her life has been told that she is not allowed to read Tales from the Hinterland, which is a book that her kind of creepy grandmother wrote, which is a collection of dark fairy tale, maybe fairy tale retellings, but dark fairy tales about this land called the Hinterland. For some reason, she is not allowed to read these books. But then her grandmother passes away, and her mom finally says that they're free. And then somehow her mother is captured or kidnapped or something along those lines. And it ends up sending Alice and a friend of hers directly to Hazelwood, which is the name of her grandmother's estate. I think this book would be considered a contemporary fantasy because it happens in modern times, but there are definitely fantastical elements to it. I love that it says that there are a lot of nods to other fairy tales and children's books, but there is definitely a darker twist to them, and it doesn't necessarily have a happy ending, except that Alice learns that she is the author of her own story. So this sounds super interesting to me. It's not something that I might normally read, but I do love fairy tale retellings. I don't know when it says a dark fairy tale retelling how dark it's gonna get, so that might put me off just a little bit, but it sounds interesting enough that I am very intrigued and would be definitely interested in looking for it in my library. The second book that I'd like to talk about also came out on January 30th, and this is called The Monk of Moka by Dave Eggers. Now, Dave Eggers wrote The Circle, which was a little bit of a disappointing read for me and many others. However, it wasn't his writing that was disappointing, it was the plot and the characters. But this one is so completely different from The Circle that I'm very intrigued. In this book, we meet a Yemeni American who grows up in San Francisco, and he's working as a doorman in a hotel, I believe, and isn't very satisfied with his life. He has a dream of resurrecting the ancient art of Yemeni coffee, which I didn't know that was a thing, but I don't know much about this part of the world, so this is partly why it intrigues me. While he is in Yemen doing research and traveling around to different coffee fields and talking to people and learning about the ancient art of coffee in Yemen, he gets caught in the midst of a war. Bombs from another country are going off around him, and he is trapped between wanting to escape and get out, but also not wanting to abandon his people. It's about a part of the world that I am not familiar with at all, and that interests me. I also didn't mind Dave Eggers' writing from The Circle. I'm very interested to see about this book. I think it sounds like a good one. The third book that I want to talk to you about today is called White Chrysanthemum by Mary Lynn Bracht. And this one also came out on January 30th. And this one, if you know anything about me, is right in my wheelhouse. It is a World War II historical fiction book about 2 sisters. Sounds like The Nightingale if you ask me. But this one happens to take place in Korea and Japan, maybe. We also follow dual timelines in this book. The first timeline happens in 1943 when we focus on one of the sisters who is a Henyeo. I'm gonna put the word here because I'm not saying it probably correctly. But she is a female diver during World War II, which is not very common, and a very strong-willed person. She rescues her sister from a Japanese soldier, and in the process is captured herself. She's forced to become a comfort woman in a military brothel in Japan. That is the first timeline. Sounds horrible and yet super interesting. The second timeline is in 2011 in South Korea, where we follow the other sister who has struggled with the sacrifice that her sister made during the war. And they have been separated all of this time. I'm really hoping that they get back together in this book, but I don't know. So it deals with trying to find peace and forgiveness in the midst of that inner turmoil and guilt even of what her sister sacrificed on her behalf. So this book sounds right up my alley. I love World War II historical fiction. I love family dramas, and I love dual timelines. So this is going to be one that I definitely will be looking for in the library. The fourth book that I'd like to talk about is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, and this one comes out on February 6th. And in this book, we meet a family in 1974, and the husband was a soldier during the Vietnam War and is really struggling when he comes home, unable to find a job, and he and his wife decide to uproot their family, which is those two and their teenage daughter, and move to Alaska to kind of restart their lives and give themselves a hope of a chance. When they arrive in Alaska, they're unprepared for the weather and the long days of darkness that are upon them, the isolation that's there. But they are embraced by a community and find resilience and strength in the midst of their community. It also says that it celebrates the strength of women as well in this novel. I just love Kristen Hanna's storytelling ability. I've only read 2 of her books and both of them were wonderful. So I really do look forward to reading The Great Alone. The 5th book that I'd like to talk about today is Whiskey and Ribbons by Lisa Cross Smith, and this one comes out on March 6th. This is a contemporary book about grief and loss and family. We have 3 points of view in this story. The first point of view that we read in this story is about Evie, and she was 9 months pregnant when her husband was shot in the line of duty. About 6 months later, there's a blizzard and her husband's adopted brother comes to stay to help take care of the baby. And that is the first point of view that we're getting. The second point of view is her husband, Eamon, and we are seeing his thought process of becoming a father and what that means to him and the dangers of his job as a police officer and him considering something different and just hearing his thoughts about what it's going to mean to him to be a father. The third point of view is the adopted brother, Dalton, and we learn about him desiring to find his biological father and what that means as an adopted child. He's an adult now, but having been adopted, wanting to find where he came from, but also struggling with trying to live up to his brother's job, like being a police officer and the respect that he gets from that and trying to live up to his brother's standards, but then also stepping in as a surrogate father in his brother's place to help out his sister-in-law. I don't know if a romance develops between them. I think its focus is more on grief and loss and hope and whether it's possible to heal after such a horrible tragedy such as that. So I'm really looking forward to reading that one and can't wait till March when it comes out. So those are 5 books that I am very excited about. Yeah, I don't normally look at what's coming out, so I think I'm gonna enjoy every few months taking a look at what's coming out soon and adding some things to my TBR, as if my TBR isn't already long enough. But there you have it. Those are 5 books. I would love to know if you've heard of any of these, if they're kind of on your radar as well, or if you were introduced to something new. I would love to chat with you about that and anything else down in the comments below as always. I look forward to talking to you in another video very soon. Bye!